Every major paradigm shift related to transportation has been met with great resistance. The automobile, aviation, ride sharing. Imagine growing up in a city that is constantly creating and innovating, a utopia that boasts thriving, equitable economies and improved experiences for residents, businesses, institutions, and government agencies. One where the digital divide is no longer crippling. One where transportation budgets are not swallowed by failing, outdated infrastructure. One where public safety and cybersecurity aren't luxuries but the expectation. One where all living things might enjoy clean water and clean air as a basic right, and where municipalities enjoy balanced budgets and sound infrastructure. Imagine this city that uses technology as a tool to improve outcomes for residents. 22% of students in Cincinnati public schools lack access to basic internet at home. In the state of Ohio, we use at least 90% of our transportation budgets to simply repair and maintain our outdated roads every year. These same roads that use at least 1/3 of our urban infrastructure and are still responsible for tens of thousands of traffic casualties each year. Speaking of that, the life expectancy in Hamilton County varies from neighborhood to neighborhood by up to 20 years, and this can be directly correlated to air quality. The EPA even set up shop in the Ohio River Valley because our water quality is so bad. The point of saying this is that off-the-shelf technologies are available now, and emerging innovations are being incubated to solve and prevent the roadblocks disallowing us from improving our quality of life. Public-private partnerships and innovation funnels are fighting through the red tape to make progress. If at first the idea is not absurd, then there is no hope for it. My good friend Albert Einstein said that. I remember being laughed out of rooms just a few years ago when talking about the very ideas we are talking about today. Ideas like next-generation transportation solutions, regional internet connectivity, and so forth. The conversation around smart cities, although at the time we weren't calling them that, raised scrutiny, not eyebrows. And I admit, certain moments made me question myself about what I was doing, but I knew that this calling was something that I couldn't not do. I knew I was uniquely positioned to tap my experiences and passions in a dedicated pursuit of smart city solutions. We automated communication during the last century, and I truly believe that we can automate transportation in this one. In doing so, we will at least double our quality of life. We will gain access to better education, better jobs and job training, healthcare, and sustainable food systems. But before we can automate transportation, we must lay down a foundational layer of smart infrastructure focused on connectivity. We must do this in order to improve upon and scale interoperable solutions. Smart cities and their rural counterparts will become interconnected in the developed and developing world, and the idea of driving a car in an urban environment will become an old-fashioned notion. There will be speed bumps on the road to automating transportation, from public policy and social adoption to technology integrations and interoperability. In fact, every major paradigm shift relating to transportation has been met with great resistance. Take the car, for example. When the car was first invented, it was banned from many urban areas because the engines were loud and they tended to startle the horses. We adapted. We built bigger roads, turned horses into pets, and created a more multimodal mesh for transportation. Today, we are innovating and creating again. And again, the critics are not quiet. Oftentimes, special interests shout loudest. Who is going to pay for this? Who is going to build and maintain this? How will everything connect seamlessly, and how will we transition from the old to the new? With forward-thinking solutions comes a chorus of experts chiming in with doubts. Can we build a smart city? Can we actually automate transportation? Innovators understand the hesitations, the fears, but fear never stopped the best ideas from becoming a reality. We are absolutely building smart cities and connected regions. We are doing it here in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I'll circle back to that. The bigger question becomes, can we build the physical internet? Because you see, the physical internet is the key to unlocking automated transportation at scale and building smart cities and connected communities. The physical internet is how we will move people, goods, utilities, and information seamlessly and securely from place to place in almost no time at all. The physical internet is how we will enable economic mobility regardless of socioeconomic barriers. We will create access to education, job training, healthcare, and leisure. We will create an ecosystem of regional collaborations where smart city solutions are modular and scalable. That means that they work together, city to city, state to state, and region to region. These smart city solutions keep dollars local, ensuring that as we improve districts and neighborhoods, we're not outpricing residents. This is the century that we indeed will automate transportation and create interconnected communities by using technology and smart planning to improve outcomes. This is the idea of a smart city, to use technology as a tool to improve outcomes for residents, for businesses, and for governments. But technically speaking, the idea of it appears audacious at first glance. An entire city, state, or region connected with smart infrastructure and sensors and interactive solutions allowing us to create workable, livable, thriving communities. A monumental task at hand involving new, hard, and soft infrastructure initiatives. One that would require collaboration across sectors and government agencies, across state and sometimes even country lines. I'll take a step back to tell you about my first light bulb moment, which, unlike my latest moment of enlightenment, entirely lacked clarity. After all, there are different variations of light bulb moments. Have you ever had that bright idea? It's like walking into a room and being able to see every detail and angle without a shadow of a doubt. My first bright idea was similar to that, except I just happened to be in a very small, very dark room. So my dim, flickering light gave me a false sense of clarity, but it did eventually help me attract brighter lights into my space. Suddenly, I was surrounded with mentors and peers who were brighter than I was, more informed and better connected, always willing to tell me just how stupid my bad ideas were, but just as willing to give me the tools and support to execute on the good ones. My first bright idea resulted in my great decision to drop out of college. At the time, I called it an extended leave of absence. For the record, I don't regret it at all. I worked in hospitality nights and weekends while getting my first attempt at a startup off of the ground. I was 19 years old in Washington, D.C., and completely on my own, completely at my own discretion. I landed in D.C. to study at American University, where I had grand plans of launching a political career centered on reforming education. You might say I was a bit optimistic. You might say I was an arrogant millennial. People certainly said both. By the time I landed in D.C., I had a few years under my belt in the political arena, and I'd worked on a presidential campaign in what should have been my senior year of high school, although some creative footwork allowed me to finish with honors a bit early. I was young and wildly unaware of what the real world had in store. I moved ahead without fear or doubt. I always had a thick skin and an interest in creative problem solving. I was a bit of a loner growing up. My parents were divorced and each remarried before I was in grade school. I never really found a place fitting in with my friends at school or at home. I was always eager to learn, but frustrated with my environment. I found books and shows and websites with information on how things work and what our universe is made of. I was fortunate to attend a small private grade school that encouraged that individual thinking. In fact, I did a presentation on electric vehicles in Mrs. Kruger's class at Bethany School that I remember to this day. I was a lazy student, and I can almost guarantee you that I did not get an A. But I was always set on digging deeper and was completely contented keeping my circles small and my grades above passing. I never had to search for my mission or passions. I always seemed to stumble into them and gravitate towards others with shared visions and values. Being a huge geek of all things technology and specifically transportation, I have always been attracted to ideas and projects related to mobility. When we launched my first startup, our first paying customers were Uber and Zipcar, and my interest in next-generation transportation solutions were further catalyzed. Uber is not nearly as outside of the box as where I would end up, though, as I would find myself exploring the depths of next-generation transportation infrastructure that many people might compare to the Jetsons. While in D.C., we were working on smart cities education initiatives where I was able to get in touch with Daryl Oster of ET3, or Evacuated Tube Transport Technologies. Daryl is the godfather of tube transportation. And before publishing a white paper on that exact topic, Elon Musk met with Oster to tap the ET3 brain trust. This was all before he announced his Hyperloop ideas, and similar to Mr. Musk, after speaking with Daryl Oster, I began losing sleep. I became frustrated and started reverse engineering solutions to help bring his transformative ideas to life. And at the same time, I was working my way out of our humble startup that did see some early success, but I still found myself in a depressed state following my exit. I was riddled with anxiety. I had alienated myself from my family and friends. There were more days than there are more days than I am willing to admit in which I struggled to even get out of bed. I was stagnant and in the deepest depths, and one day I realized what had happened. I turned into a blobfish. While at my lowest low, I realized that entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are a lot like deep-sea creatures. We swim at our own depths without the need for traditional light, although that doesn't come without its own pressures. We don't swim in schools or clean bacteria off of sharks' teeth, but we are scrappy, always able to pinpoint available resources and utilize those against addressable opportunity areas in the market. We are focused on smart value exchanges, always putting out more value into our environment than we expect to see in return. And so finally, after far too long, similar to a bioluminescent fish, I once again found myself generating original light with overflowing energy driven by passionate and burning ideas. My need to create and innovate started giving off a glow, and once again, I started attracting brighter lights into my space. How can we build a smart city? Heated debates, passionate discussions, tireless research. I worked with a core team to start creating local, regional, and international working groups to time compress the realization to our problems. Collaboration will drive smart city success stories, and with that in mind, we set out to partner with universities, public-private organizations, and municipal bodies. We attracted thought leaders and interested community members committed to smart city solutions. People that shared our frustrations as technology continues to outpace policy, as innovation continues to outpace implementation. We made it our mission to add cohesiveness to smart city conversations by educating and aligning stakeholders around available resources and addressable opportunity areas. We started working with international standards groups to create process-driven standards for municipal smart city deployments. We began working aggressively behind the scenes and stayed true to the rhetoric that we are, in fact, better when we work together, and we must maintain a community-driven approach, not one that's controlled by vendors or taglines. We decided that we first have to make these conversations understandable, relatable, and digestible. We ideated the pillars and tenets of smart cities. These workable, livable regions rely on core pillars of connectivity, mobility, security, and sustainability to thrive and scale. I try to quickly break these pillars down and often fail, but I do like to note that they apply in smart cities, connected communities, and advanced facilities alike. Connectivity is the foundational layer of a smart city. We're connecting people, places, things, and information in real time, and we're collecting data so that we can use that data to make better real-time and long-term planning decisions. Connectivity goes far beyond Wi-Fi, but I will spare you the tech talk and move on to mobility. Mobility means that we're moving people, goods, and utilities efficiently and effectively, but we're also enabling economic mobility regardless of circumstance. In Greater Cincinnati, we might connect job seekers to the 74,000 available jobs not accessible via public transportation. And next, security. While driverless cars and autonomous transportation conversations seem to be driving smart cities chit-chat, oftentimes overlooked is security. We must be constantly auditing and improving public safety and cybersecurity while using technology to improve safety in public and private spaces, on and offline. And of course, sustainability. Focusing on sustainable practices in key sectors from transportation and agriculture to manufacturing and energy, but also honing in on financial sustainability and deploying solutions that revolve around smart value exchange systems. And I have to go on a bit of a tangent within my tangent to talk about smart value exchange systems because I find that the topic is a critical component of any smart city. When I talk about deploying a smart city solution, we are talking about a process or a technology implementation that does at least one of three things: creates value, generates revenue, or cuts costs. Depending on those value exchange systems, public and private partners can get creative with the financing of these projects to improve outcomes while also alleviating municipal budgetary distresses. A case study that shows us how these ideas can work in real time is one of my favorites to cite from just south of us in Newport, Kentucky. In Newport, the Smart Cities Brain Trust worked together to solve a problem and create a new revenue stream for the city while bringing value to residents and guests. How? It wasn't easy. and I certainly can't take credit for the hard work put in by my partner and his team. First, they identified the digital divide problem in Newport. And similar to Cincinnati, students in Newport public schools also lacked access to internet at an alarming rate, somewhere between 20 and 25%. We decided to deploy a smart city kiosk solution that collects data, generates revenue, and acts as a point of attraction for residents and guests. That solution provided a creative value exchange model that allowed us to work with a local internet service provider to offset the cost of providing internet to families that were living without. Now, students in Newport Public Schools have a 0% accessibility issue, and that city has also taken its first step at becoming a fully integrated smart city. In fact, the data collection from the initial deployment is already helping the city plan for transportation and urban development initiatives. But back to my moment of enlightenment. I knew that as the attention around autonomous transportation is sweeping smart city conversations, it was absolutely imperative that we take a step back to first consider connectivity solutions at scale. As much as I enjoy exploring and planning for autonomous vehicles and smart transportation, I can't help but feel the pressure of the bottleneck as conversations continue down pathways that might not promote the most sustainable growth strategies for municipal budgets or regional collaborations. We have to take a people, not product approach when deploying smart solutions. With the pillars in mind, connecting people, places, things, and information in real time is a given outcome of building a smart city. Solutions developed using data from connected infrastructure will improve the mobility of people, goods, utilities, and information. Emerging technologies will constantly improve public safety and cybersecurity as best practices and proper planning enable sustainable solutions across sectors, including transportation and agriculture, manufacturing, and energy. These pillars create the vision of a workable, livable region supported by smart cities on a mission to improve our quality of life and spark economic mobility regardless of circumstance. My moment of enlightenment about how to create smart cities was meaningless without the clarity to support that mission. I was only able to find that clarity by attracting brighter, more capable, more experienced people into my circle. I needed their guidance and support to be able to clearly articulate that connectivity is the foundation upon which smart cities may thrive. Mobility acts as the backbone of smart cities as security and sustainability become commonplace and contribute to an enhanced quality of life. If we collaborate to build smart regions, we can drive economic mobility and development while developing and maintaining talent and innovation funnels to enhance this smart city cycle. We launched regional smart cities initiatives with these fundamental ideas in mind and hope to create devices that encourage and enable the next generation of entrepreneurs to shine brighter, accomplishing feats we only dream of today. Do you think we will realize this paradigm shift in this decade? Do you imagine we might actually automate transportation? Do you believe we are able to build smart cities in the developed and in the developing world? Do you think you can help? Thank you.